Hi, welcome back to Weatherford Daze. I'm Rachel, this is Jason. We are beginning a new series this week. So we just finished up Jules Verne, and for the next couple of weeks we're going to be talking about someone that is kind of Jules Verne adjacent, right? You would say?
Yes, and you said that some of Jules Verne's books were very pivotal during your childhood. Mm-hmm. And so I would say H.G. Wells was to me. And so that's what we're going to talk about. We're going to do 2 or 3 of his most well-known books.
Planning 3, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, planning 3. So the next 3 weeks will be all about H.G. Wells for the rest of April here. So yeah, and this first one we're doing is The War of the Worlds.
The War of the Worlds.
Which was really fun. I went ahead and confession, I had never read the actual full version of any H.G. Wells. I had read abridged versions.
Yeah, it's kind of...
I've seen movies of them, but I had never actually read the full version. So this actually got me to sit down and read these, which was fun. It was different than I had actually expected it to be, but I enjoyed it, especially once I kind of wrapped my head around the way that it was being written, because I think the abridged versions, the children's versions, it kind of really changes up the feel of what you're getting. So I appreciated.
I would like to say that I think they held back in some ways, because it doesn't go into overly violent or gory descriptions, but it gives enough of it that your mind makes up the rest of it. Mm-hmm. And I don't think that would work really well for children's adaptations. I
think some of what you miss is kind of the introspection and the thought process. You get kind of the action, the bullet points, but you kind of miss what I actually ended up finding myself appreciating the most and wanting more of.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we decided this week we're not going to do a detailed plot by plot of this.
We'll try not
to do a summary.
Yeah.
And you have that, right?
I have, yeah, and I'm going to zip through it if I can.
Go.
Well, let's talk about the man first, yeah?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Go for it.
He goes by H.G. Wells, but his full name is Herbert George Wells. He was a British author during the beginning of the 1900s, and he did go to school at the Royal Academy. He studied under some famous biologists, evolutionary biologists, which of course kind of shaded his thinking, of course, in that. He also was very connected to politics, and I was also thinking about, a lot of people nowadays say that people infuse politics or their own worldview into their science fiction too much, and I'm like, they've been doing that for many, many years, and why? It's just I guess they decided not to hide it as much. But Jules,
I don't know that it's ever been hidden, has it?
Well, there's some science fiction that feels purely adventurous, and it's almost like fantasy in terms of guy with a sword on another planet, and the aliens are just stand-ins for fantasy races, and it's just daring do. It's not. There's no.
I feel like you can always tell the religion and the politics of writers.
Yeah.
You can always tell. If you know anything about religion and politics, you can glean that worldview out.
Or you can guess that they are either what they're favorable to. Mm-hmm. So what I found it interesting is that there's a connection between Verne and Wells, in that Verne was toward the end of his life and still alive when H.G. Wells was writing his stuff. So Verne actually said of him, I thought this was interesting, He said, I do not see the possibility of comparison between his work and mine. It occurs to me that his stories do not repose on very scientific basis. I make use of physics. He invents. Which I thought was kind of funny. Which
I completely agree.
Yeah, he did not, though. He never said that he did. He, of course, he would have a what if or an idea, and then he would kind of, something he wanted to say, and then he would say it with the story. So he says, he quoted about Verne. He says, H.G. Wells says this, he helped his reader to imagine it done and to realize what fun, excitement, or mischief would ensue. Many of his inventions have come true, but these stories of mine do not pretend to deal with possible things. They are exercises of the imagination in a quite different field. Mm-hmm. So I think his is more, I guess what we call soft science fiction, in terms of that he doesn't lean on the scientific bases of things. Another word would be social science fiction, which that phrase social science fiction came up, I think, in the 70s, late 60s and the 70s, when they were trying to, that's when The Handmaid's Tale came out and things like that, where they were using science fiction as a way to make a point.
I feel like H.G. Wells feels more like where Star Trek went than Verne does. Because the purpose of H.G. Wells was not to kind of show the world and really let people understand the world as it is through an interesting story like Verne did. The purpose of H.G. Wells seemed to be, when mankind is put in this situation, what is he going to do?
Right.
Which,
or when
to me, that's very Star Trek.
Or what's our future? Where are we going? If things are this certain way, what is it when you take it to that logical conclusion? Where we could go, and it's kind of a warning in some ways, or a
very
cautionary tale.
Yeah.
Those elements are there, and we're going to see that in all three of the stories that we're going to talk about. I bet. I mean, there's so just be on the lookout for that if you're coming with us. He said probably his precursor to him would be someone like Mary Shelley and Frankenstein. He said that's his vein, because Mary Shelley never said, here's how you actually could bring back the dead. Her thing is, we're bringing back the dead. What does that mean to man and man becoming God? And and those so I do think that there are those deeper questions that they're trying to say. Sometimes he hits with it, sometimes he doesn't, based upon, your enjoyment of the stories. But he nevertheless had a huge impact on books. And if they never made an adaptation or movie of any of his stuff, that'd be fine, but they have. And so there's been that, that impact there. He was also a socialist, a progressive socialist, a utopian. He had early on joined a society called the Fabian Society, which was kind of a proto-progressive society, but they were into what was called gradualism, which meant they would put little bits as they went, a little too progressive for him, if you know what I mean. Like he wanted take their foot and put on the accelerator. He wanted to, so he would be very happy living in our world if you want to go there. So that's H.G. Wells, and that's his thing.
That explains some things for me, for sure.
Yeah. and some
good to know.
Well, and you can, and as we go and talk about the plot, you can see a little bit of, there's a character in there that in a scene that I think you connected with, and I think that some elements in there may be a little bit
connected with. It might be the wrong word.
The artilleryman.
That's the wrong word.
Okay, not connected.
I found
not connected.
That the most interesting part of the book.
That's what I'm trying to say.
Not because I connected with him.
Okay.
But because
I used the wrong words. Yeah, I didn't mean connected with him as in we vibe on the same.
Yeah.
He thinks like me. No, what I meant was it's a scene that you got into because it was interesting. But
let's not jump there yet. First, go ahead and give a brief summary of the plot, please.
I will, and what I want to do though, and this is every time they do this in an adaptation, I'm like, okay. And even if the adaptation totally doesn't work, they still use this quote, and I'll try to sum it up.
Okay.
And I think you probably know what it is. No one would have believed in the last years of the 19th century that this world was being watched keenly and closely by intelligences greater than man's and yet as mortal as his own. That as men busied themselves about their various concerns, they were scrutinized, studied, perhaps almost as narrowly as a man with a microscope might scrutinize the transient creatures that swarm and multiply in a drop of water. And then it says that across the gulf of space, minds that are to our minds as ours are to the beasts that perish, intellects vast and cool and unsympathetic, regarded this earth with envious eyes and slowly and surely drew their plans against us. They always do that quote at the beginning, and it's like my favorite one, and it does have elements in there that we'll talk about in the themes, particularly how we view ourselves and how we view our place in the universe. All right. Mm-hmm. So it takes place in the latter half of the 19th century, and we start getting attacked by Mars. They don't know it yet. They first start seeing some cylinders land on Earth, and then these machines start coming out of them. And we don't take it seriously. Then all of a sudden the people there are faced with an invasion. And we hear mainly from the main character, who's the narrator, I guess is what you call him. And he's got his wife and his cousin that he's got to make sure they're okay. He is faced with these different situations where the Martians are attacking, people are dying. He has got to make his way back to his family, but at the same time, he's confronted by a couple of different individuals that he holds himself up with. Finally, even though the military is not fully successful in stopping them, what is successful in stopping them is the smallest of things, and something that we are immune to. It's microorganisms. And we get the clue that's happening when this red weed stuff that the Martians have starts dying due to probably to the bacteria, and so then the Martians do it. So that's pretty much the story. The great British Empire brought low.
The focus really seems to be on the reactions of the people. You have the fact that the main character, like the narrator, is not named. I don't know that I've ever actually read another book where that was the case. I think that that's really unique, but
that's going to happen in The Time Machine as well.
Okay.
But
so
not
it's an H.G. Wells thing.
But not in The Invisible Man. We actually do get a name of the Invisible Man.
Right.
Yeah.
But I think that, having that happen where it's just this first person narrative where he's never ever named kind of allows you to sink into that first person point of view.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways of going, this is what happens. And the only thing that really kind of draws you out of that is the fact that we then follow his brother as well. And so he's telling from his brother's perspective the stuff that happened to his brother. So
did that kind of pull you out of it a little bit?
I felt it did, kind of. I felt like, if he had committed to that first person narrative, I think that, that would have brought home that if that was actually his purpose in trying to do it rather than just kind of a byproduct of it.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, well, you have this genius idea to do something where the person that's telling the story is kind of living it and it's never named, so the entire time it can be you. But then you go to, well, this is all the things that my brother's experiencing, and it's like, okay, I don't know.
Well, to dip into one of the adaptations that I rewatched recently, it was 2005's War of the Worlds, directed by Steven Spielberg. It has Tom Cruise in it, and they follow him pretty much the entire movie. I mean, he's Tom Cruise, he's the star.
Yeah.
But they follow him. They don't go to any brother or character or whatever. They stick with him, and I think that gives an immediacy to it. Plus, they add a couple of characters, his two kids, and so that makes you care about that, I think, as well. It pulls you in a little bit more. But yeah, you're right. They should have stayed with him. But I think that Wells wanted to show the reactions from different, like a journalist or an astronomer, or the different
right.
people.
I almost felt like maybe even having more of that would have been nice. Because, well, you see a lot of movies that if you're going to have, different things happening at the same time to different characters, you tend to get multiple different, and then at the end, they all just happen to come together at the pivotal point and,
or affect each other in some way. Like, that's an interesting twist.
This one, it's like, okay, we're seeing what happens in, here versus what's happening to him. But at the same time, another really kind of unique thing about his story is that there are no heroes. There are no heroes in this entire story. Like, there's only one. Okay. Again and again, I was struck by just how unprepared. And I think that in this cautionary tale that he's telling,
that's a theme, yeah.
That's what he was trying to say, is basically there's something that's so big that you can't fight it. There's no way, and there's no way to be prepared. As much as they're going, we've got our military coming out and they've got their guns and they're going to set up and they're going to do these traps and all of these plans, they're just immediately countered by the Martians. You have one Martian at the very beginning that is actually killed, and it's completely by chance.
Yeah.
It's not even that, the defenders had some brilliant plan and, you see, other, alien movies that I've watched or books, I think Independence Day, which seems like a lot of the same themes that this one is going through.
Independence Day has a hoorah, go get 'em.
It's like
the big speech from the president.
There's genius and there's ingenuity and there's bravery and, and in that bravery is this intelligence, and like the greatest minds in the world are coming together, and we are the ones that, we introduced a cold to the aliens.
Right.
And
it was a computer virus, but they used the phrase, we'll give it a cold.
We're going to give it a cold. And that's, exactly copying what essentially happens here to defeat the Martians. They caught a cold.
Well,
and it killed them, But it wasn't anything that any human did. The humans in this one, all of them are immediately killed or they turn tail and run.
Right.
The only ones that actually stand up are dead like that, and they're shown as not even being brave, just being idiots.
Yeah.
They just were dumb, and they ended up dying.
Well, in the 1950s, this is probably the most famous one, the 1953 War of the Worlds, directed by George Powell. He shows, of course, this is pro-America, or whatever. So they have to drop an atomic bomb on it, and there's a whole or a hydrogen bomb, and that's it mirrors the part in the book where they're using the HMS Thunderchild, which is a ship with a cannon on it. So it's
kind of mention that. That's the one part where you actually see some bravery.
Well, when they do the atomic bomb in that movie, it is useless, and it is going, oh no. Well, they did that in Independence Day too. They did the nuclear weapon, and it destroyed Houston because of their shields. So here's the deal. The whole thing with the bacteria, there's a part earlier in the movie where they stop an alien in 1953's War of the Worlds. They stop an alien, and he gets a little bit of blood on a handkerchief. And this doctor, the main doctor guy, scientist, we're supposed to action scientist, Clayton Forrester, he hands it off to the military and says, maybe we can do something with this, and have some scientists there, and they go, perhaps even a viral. We could do something with a pathogen or something like that. And then they don't show it, though, them implementing, I think, if I remember correctly. But later on, it does do that. So you think, oh, we shot them with a virus or we gave them a cold. So we did it. So basically, it's Americans taking ingenuity.
In the book, it says that as soon as they landed and started eating something here and breathing our air, that was the start of their downfall.
Yeah.
So it completely removes any, like, I guess, credit that we could give ourselves. It's like, no. They were starting to figure out how to fly in the book, right? They would have gone, right. They built these machines to be able to walk around. So they took, because at first they're going, oh, well, they have different gravity here. They can barely move. It'll be easy to defeat them.
Yeah.
Within a few days, they've built machines and they can rapidly get around. And then they're building machines to fly. We find out that, basically these are the worst kind of predators because they're like their entire, like, they eat us.
They take our blood. Yeah.
So it's not like,
like
they just want to destroy. They're injecting our blood directly into their systems through straws.
Yeah.
They don't have like internal organs and stuff. That was also
Did that remind you of Doctor Who with
the
lady who was sipping people with a straw? Remember that one?
I remember it. Yeah. It didn't.
Space vampires. Doctor Who. Yeah.
She's way too human.
Yeah. Well, the creature is the size of a bear-looking thing, and it has a lipless mouth or whatever, and these eyes and these tentacles. There is a short story or a little novella that Thank you.
Yeah.
That Wells wrote in 1893, and it surmises that if humans go the way they go, or he believed in evolution, so we would just be all hands. We would be we wouldn't need to use our bodies as much. We'd be very brain oriented. So he's basically using those elements in terms of so he's
saying kind of that would be the epitome of evolution, would be
technology would
all
be
that you would
everything
need.
we are.
Like if we got rid of everything that's extraneous and just kept what was necessary, brain,
essentialist,
and hands,
very essentialist,
right,
in terms
would
of biology.
be what we need. So that's the way that he presented the Martians.
And their greatest thing, the Martians, is their technology. And to tap on a theme here, the greatest thing about the British Empire was their technology. Is they had a great navy. The navy was second to none. And it even, at the very beginning of the book, it even mentions Tasmania. It says Tasman. It means Tasmania. And of course, there is off the coast. It's part of Australia, and you've got the Aborigines. You've got people that had very low technology. They're a culture just like any other, and worthy of friendship and diplomacy. And yet they just wiped them out. They just went. We have better guns. We have better navy, and this is this whole thing was his way of saying, oh, you British Empire, you were so full of yourself. You're so egocentric. And then here comes this, what are you going to do now, huh? There's this complete other civilization. And I thought it was interesting. The British Empire, the imperialist people were saying, these brutes, these savages, these hideous, they were calling them hideous. But in a way, don't more civilized people call others savage and call them brutes? So it's, the shoe's on the other foot now is kind of how he's taking it. And
remember, there actually is that in the book, the line that says, if anything, this should give us compassion for those animals. And I mean, he wasn't speaking of people at that point, but he's talking about the creatures that we just disregard, the ants, the animals, that are smaller and just easily, we don't even think about their destruction.
Right.
And that was the way that all of a sudden the human race was being treated, as just not having any value, just being a thing.
And we never thought it would, we always thought
we weren't even a worthy foe for the Martians. It was just a brief, okay, well, they're going to try and fight back. Let's create a vaporous gas that just completely kills
Yeah, that
them
was
on
two
contact.
of their biggest weapons, I think, were the heat ray, which you see a lot of, and it just takes them completely by surprise. There's no defense against this, and the vapor, the black vapor, which the Martians can get rid of if they spray the steam. It kind of clears it out, but it's all throughout. When I was looking at this, one thing to think about is that Wells would never have thought of yet is an attack on Britain. There was a story, I think, back in the 1700s, that somebody wrote with a German invasion of Britain. Interestingly enough, it would happen during World War II with the Blitz, and they had British people going underground in the subways, kind of the tube, as they called it, and they would hide down in there, and you'd have the alarms go off, and everybody would turn their lights off, and they were under siege. That's what it was, and the British people at the time that War of the Worlds was written could never have maybe thought, oh, the Germans will actually attack Britain, but it happened, and so and also it kind of made me think also of the mustard gas attacks during World War II. Yes.
That is, like I was saying, just how striking it was at how unprepared and just the reactions of humanity in this, where you just have panicking, you have people trampling over other people. There's no regard for anyone. People are not helping each other. People aren't, you have
such a real response. It feels so real with fallen man. I mean fallen as in, the heart's a deceitful thing.
Just becomes every man for himself.
Yeah.
And there's just almost an immediate numbing of, you're seeing so much death so quickly that people just become numb to it, where it's like, there's no attempt to bury any of the dead. There's no attempt to...
That's a civilized action.
Right.
Is you bury the dead. In fact, people said that early man, when they saw that he was burying the dead and putting, jewelry and things with them, that's a thing where we didn't just see the dead as just a hunk of meat. We saw it as, this is someone that we cared about. You know what I'm saying? And so the fact that they're just like, forget this, it is very telling that's many times in a war type situation, those things just, that caring for the dead goes by the wayside.
Very much survival of the fittest.
Which is an evolutionary thing, and this is what he studied in school, and so it infused it. The Martians are an example of it.
You're also seeing this. You have two characters, right, that he meets along the way, and one is the rector.
Yeah, it calls him a curate, and I had to look up what that was, honestly.
Right.
But he's a priest. I would call him a deacon. I don't know.
Right. He was a church official.
Close enough. Yeah.
So this guy is, from the very start, just described very negatively, right? He's sitting there and just not able to process. And he ends up going along with our main character for several weeks, trying to escape and survive, but it ends up where our main character has to kill him because he's gone insane and is about to expose. Well, he starts going, okay, I have to preach repentance. So he starts shouting, and there's not even any humans around. The only ones that are there are the Martians. So yeah, that was brutal, but it's just, this guy is presented as somebody who doesn't have any basic intelligence or ability to survive on his own. He goes to his very basest needs. He doesn't have the ability to ration the food even. He's like, just goes, I'm going to just eat everything in sight. And, our main character has to fight him to try and get him to leave some because they're stuck, and the Martians are right outside, and they have no idea how long they're going to be stuck there before they're going to be able to escape. So it's that was just you're seeing in kind of in depth this reaction of just nobody is actually having a good reaction. Nobody is reacting well. Nobody is able to keep their senses about them. Even our main character is going through these periods of just, he describes it as just kind of losing himself. And he's just getting emotional and panicking, and then he comes back to himself after a little bit and is able to kind of move on through the next steps. But he has no plan, really. He loses all kind of capacity to do anything other than survive. And yet he's functioning better than pretty much everybody else that he's meeting. And then you've got the artilleryman.
Yeah, he sees him earlier on, and
right.
then he comes back later, so he's kind of a, yeah.
Yeah, they traveled together for like maybe a day at the very beginning.
Yeah.
Trying to escape, and they get separated, and then after a couple weeks of this Martian rule, and pretty much everybody's cleared out, he runs into him again, and at first he's kind of swept away because the artilleryman has a plan, which this again was the most fascinating part of the book to me, because nobody has a plan, nobody has any effective way to fight back or to survive. Everybody's just reacting in the moment, very much not well, right? And then you see finally somebody has a plan, and I'm going, okay, cool, we're getting somewhere, right? And oh boy, was I betrayed very quickly by this, because I've read a lot of apocalyptic stuff.
Yeah.
Where you have different groups that form gangs maybe, and, have different ideas of how to survive. And you've got...
Tribes.
Right, tribes. And you have the tribes that are very much based off of just one person that decides to rule over everybody else, and then it's always the good guys that are presented as the ones that are trying to create an equitable society, and something that works, but that's based off of morality, and just this higher ideal, trying to retain what the best things are about mankind and our
right.
current societies, right? They're trying to hang on to that through apocalyptic situations. Well, we don't get that in this book. There's no actual good plan for the survival of humanity. The only plan that we get is by this artilleryman, who basically has decided that the majority of humans are going to just have to be food for the Martians. And because they're just dumb, they're stupid, right? So we're just going to let them distract the Martians and keep the Martians happy, and we're going to tunnel down underground, which you were talking about the tunnels, right? So he actually does go, we're going to live beneath London in the tunnels.
Wow. And
this is how we're going to survive. We're going to build a society. We're going to bring in only those people who are actually, survivalist. Those people who can contribute something. We're going to keep it small, but, we'll create this society where we fight back, right? And eventually we're going to be able to take over. We're going to go and we'll capture the Martians' machinery, and we'll use it to wipe out the Martians. That's his grand plan, right? They're going to survive for a while. They're going to try, he goes, well, you're a learned man, right? So you'll be in charge of compiling books of science, and we won't worry about any fiction or anything. That's, we'll just make sure that we preserve the best of what we have. You can worry about that. Me, I'll worry about making sure that we have people that can, that can fight, that are strong, and, I've got this plan, right? And at first, our main character is just kind of swept away, and it's like, yeah, this is going to work. We're going to be able to do this. And then he very quickly realizes that the artilleryman, even though he has these grand plans to be able to fight back and to dig in and create this new society, he's actually lazy.
Yeah.
He'll work for a little bit, and then he's just like, no, we're done. We can take a break. And so he really is just talking. He's not actually got the ability to do what he says he wants to do.
There's a Texas phrase. I think it's all hat and no cowboy, or something like that. It's basically means that you look the part, you talk a mean game, but when it comes down to it, you're not really in it.
But out of all of that, it was
like the
very
Fabian
much,
Society. Remember, because they said they were gradual and they didn't do anything. Yeah. Maybe that was his commentary on the Fabians.
But even then, he had no compassion. He had no desire to actually save people that couldn't save themselves. He was just so very clinical in
ultra
his
pragmatic, just super pragmatic
was needed. And the way that he looked on the majority of people as just being idiots that would just serve as food and distraction for the Martians, it's like, ooh, that's not the way, this is, and yeah, it just sounded like he was going to set himself up to be this bully gang leader.
Yeah.
That still had the mentality of only the strongest will survive, and these dreams of glory that were baseless. Even if he had been able to do it, it still wouldn't have been good. It still wouldn't have been the morally right way to go about saving and prolonging humanity. And it's just like, yeah, none of this is right. None of this is good.
Well, those two characters are actually somewhat combined in the 2005 Steven Spielberg version. Mm-hmm. He's less religious, and this character is more conspiracy theory kind of guy. Hidden, like, I know the secret knowledge, and I know they've been here. The Martians have been here, and they just, and what he's wanting to do is the Martians are outside the house, and he's wanting to attack them. But see, Tom Cruise's character is there with his daughter. His daughter's very afraid. And he's like, look, Tom Cruise is basically saying, we need to hole up here, and then they'll pass off, and then I can move on and go get my other son, and go see my wife. And he's like, no, we're going to take the fight to them. And he's like, you're making too much noise. You're going to bring them here, and they're going to kill us. And there's a very creepy scene. He basically he tells the little girl, put your hands over your ears and look over here, and I'm going to go in the next room. And he shuts the door, and he kills the man. And it's very creepy. But, it's even worse that he's doing it for his daughter, but his daughter, maybe knows he did something. But it's that pragmatism of, I need to save, But the same thing happens in the book as happened there, it's just they combine the characters a little bit.
This is leading me to my other thought that I had about this. And we kind of talked about this beforehand, but my thought was that H.G. Wells might have been the first in this type. Unlike some of the other greats, like Tolkien, Lewis, he definitely wasn't the best. at writing this. He took
foundation. He's a foundational.
He founded something,
you know.
but then it seems like everybody else that has told his story or stories like this have kind of developed it and made it better, even taking some of the themes and kind of pushing them on. I was disappointed in this by going, I wanted to take this idea and this thought and develop it. And there are lots of people that have done that, and I'm going, yeah, they all had the same thought I did. It's like, oh, this is a great start. Now let's finish.
Well,
but
the Model T was a great car for the time.
Mm-hmm.
And it didn't take everything to its full conclusion, because I think it set the foundation for the house. And
I can appreciate
science fiction gets
Wells.
better and better and better over time.
But the thing is nobody has been able to do what Tolkien did.
They keep trying. Yeah, we were
like,
talking about this, that the best thing about Tolkien is the worst thing about Tolkien, which is that he just knocked it out of the park, out of the solar system, and everybody has been trying to chase his coattails and grab that lightning in a bottle for decades, and they'll get just close enough and you'll go, you're copying him. And I mean,
it's like everybody's copying H.G. Wells, and we know that they're copying him. They're just doing it better than he did it. So
and that's
actually,
but that's
it's
where
adding to it. It's good.
But that's where I don't have a problem with the progressive nature of science fiction. Is, one of the best science fiction movies. We get 2001: A Space Odyssey, and then someone makes something even better, and someone makes something even better. We hope, and they keep pushing those boundaries as we can. So. But
it's almost like 2001: Space Odyssey. It's like, did somebody need to add on to that and make it better? I mean, it was pretty good as it was, right? Yeah. It was pretty complete. This one, somebody needed to. It had to be done. You couldn't just leave it where it was at.
But I think that's...
Once you started that, it was just incomplete.
But he's okay with that. I would think H.G. Wells would be okay with that.
So.
But I would say, of the adaptations that I have seen, the one that's most faithful, apart from a little bit of a drama angle that wasn't there in the original book, would be the 2019 BBC 3-part made-for-TV movie, whatever you want to call it. It does take place in Edwardian England, so that's close enough. That's around that time frame. All the characters, the artilleryman, the curate, all those different characters, they're in there. The same themes are there. There's some different, very strange, dreamlike elements in certain bits, which I wasn't quite able to figure out, but it was pretty close. The 2005 one tries, but it does it in a modern world, so I guess we can relate to it. There's one that's I haven't been able to sit through. It's terrible. It just came out last year. It has Ice Cube in it, and it's skip it. Just unless you love watching bad movies, and this one was a hard slog because it's just like,
I think that was
for
the
real.
General consensus of that one, yeah.
And do you remember movies that were made during COVID or during that time frame, where they would find ways to separate them? They'd have them on a Zoom call or something like that. This whole movie is a guy on a Zoom call.
Yeah.
And it felt like I was at work. Like he was pulling up screens and talking to his daughter, and I was like, okay, was this made 5 years ago? I don't know. It feels like it. The themes that are in this are deeper than you would think. But a lot of alien invasion movies just kind of take the tack of aliens are invading, what do we do? And we try to stop them. It becomes a war movie, and the deeper themes are not always there.
I think all in all, the reason why I was disappointed is the reason that he wrote the book. Because what I wanted to see, I think, is what he wanted people to feel. He wanted people to be disappointed in the reactions of the human race. He wanted to show us that, just kind of bring us down a peg.
Yeah, but we need to do better and be better, and I think
yeah.
but I don't know if he gave that out.
I don't think he did, and yet it's kind of a necessary end to it. Maybe he, and it's the thing that I always say is that when I read a book, the books that I like, the books that I enjoy, the books that I admire, are ones that have hope. I want a book to tell me that there is a way forward, that there is a hope. I want it to kind of give me, a reason to shut the book and go, you know what? There was bad, but there was good that triumphed over evil.
The glimmer. We could call it the glimmer. It's that light.
And this one did not have that. And so, I closed the book and I went, I didn't like that. But knowing that he wrote it as a cautionary tale, I think that he wanted people not to like it. He wanted people to go, how can we do this better?
Yeah. And I think that you're supposed to the emotions are supposed to be evoked, and you're supposed to start asking those questions and start making those choices, those better choices. He's not necessarily telling you what choices to make, but in a way he is kind of.
It's not a book to enjoy. He's
saying that pragmatism, that clinical pragmatism is not the way. He was also kind of saying something about religion in a way, whereas Verne would see something very strange and wonderful and talk. He'd mention God. I don't think Wells was very humanist. I think he was being very utopian. He would think, technocratic. His whole thought is the smartest of us should rule. The smartest, the most brilliant. And the thing is, some of the most brilliant people are very clinical and very pragmatic. So I don't know if that's ultimately the best way to go.
Well, it tells us what not to do, which can be helpful.
A lot of science fiction can do that.
It's funny though, because where he would say, mankind has fought through the very beginning of time to develop, the immune system, basically, right? That's what saved us. That's what destroyed Martians, is, that they didn't have immunity built up to all of the things we have.
Yeah.
Right? So something that we basically didn't have any control over is what took them out, and what, if there's any hope that he offered in his book, it would be that any new species that's going to come to Earth is going to have to face that same thing. It's that we've been here from the start, and we, through the evolutionary process, have fought for our right to be able to be on this planet. It's like, okay, sure, we fought for it, but not, through anything that we've actually consciously done. And in that, I'm going, well, you may not say it, but I'm going to say it. Like, that was completely God's design. We didn't do this. God did this for us. He gave us.
It was out of your control.
Immune system.
It was out of your control.
Yeah, it's like the same thing that, is protecting us is always going to be God-given. This was not a mistake. This was a design. And so, I'm ending this book going, but God, that's not where H.G. Wells would have, dreamed that his book would have gone, but that for sure is where I'm going to take it. So,
there's tons of other stuff I could talk about, but I'll tell you, I'm feeling that's a fantastic place, unless you wanted to talk about anything else. That's a great capper. So, Now, science fiction, as I've talked about with William, is always about what if. It's always about that question, what if? What if we were invaded by beings from another planet, from Mars? They were technologically superior to us. How would we react? What's their reasoning behind what they're doing? Why are they doing this? What does it reveal to us about our nature? Some of the best science fiction does that. And to look at where we are now, we have to look at where we've been. And where we've been was H.G. Wells and Verne. And they started asking those questions, along with Mary Shelley. And we, over the years, amazing science fiction keeps coming out. And we have to look back at the grandpas and the grandmas who came before us and kind of started asking those questions and went, here's how we can ask those questions. And like you said, without Wells, we wouldn't have things like Star Trek and even Doctor Who. I mean, alien invasions, invading London, that's Doctor Who in a nutshell all the time. Anyway, so but I have super enjoyed this, and I could go forever, but
but you can't.
But I can't.
But yeah, we're going to be back with another one next week. We're going to be covering Invisible Man next. So
you'll definitely see us here next time talking about the invisible. So
another book that I didn't necessarily like, but that has a purpose and a
spoiler. No. All right, but we'll talk about that then. We'll talk about why. Stay tuned. Why she didn't like it as much as anyway. All right.
So, yeah, with that, we hope that you will like, that you will subscribe, so you can join us next week.
Yep.
And we'll see you guys next time.
Okay.
Bye.